Welcome to the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, 12 years strong. And yes, folks, you will see on YouTube, we have the one and the only Len Hunsicker. Buddy, how you doing, man?
Look into my hideous eyes. It's weird. It's
The
weird
beady eyes.
being
Yes.
on video, on YouTube, whatever it is. It's
Yes.
strange.
Whatever
I
it
know
is.
everybody does this at this point, but yeah, it's
Exactly.
still weird.
Exactly. So for you listening, to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you're listening to from an audio standpoint, come on over to YouTube, search out the Philadelphia Sports Table, subscribe to us there, and like these videos. It'll help expand our reach over on YouTube. But Len, this is fun. This is actually fun getting a chance to see you as we're doing this show because Eric's been on a few times already here, and we got you set up, man. We got the setup all done for you there.
Sorry, folks. I am as God made me.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, we do have a great show. We got a lot of topics that we want to dive into on this week's show. First and foremost, we're starting up, as you all know. Eric and I have dove into this week in Philly sports history. This is a segment, Len, if you remember when we first started this show like 12 years ago, we did the Philly sports moments.
It's funny. It wasn't until I was going through it, like just now, going through the agenda just now. I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we used to do this like way back, like in the beginning.
Yes, we did. We would do it in the beginning. I loved it. And as we're heading over to video here, I think it'd be cool for us to, pick up that mantle again and talk about, because there's some fun stuff to talk about in the world of Philly sports in terms of the history, like notable things that have happened in Philly sports history. So we're going to be diving into that, folks. And then, of course, we are going to be getting into some Eagles talk. The draft has come and gone. The Eagles have 10 new players that they drafted. Howie Roseman, quite frankly, did an incredible job. And I will say this to everybody listening or watching on YouTube. We were supposed to have some very detailed analysis on our Table Talk show this past week. If you check on YouTube or you check back in the podcast feed, you're not going to see the Table Talk show because the individual that was supposed to jump on the show, and I'm not going to say who it was, who committed to coming on, he just didn't show up. Like he just told me he was doing something else. Let's just say that he was at the White House covering the Eagles, which completely, he was doing his job, but he committed to me about doing the analysis. I sent him the topics, that we were going to be diving into. Didn't hear anything back. I text him and I say, are you still good to record here this afternoon? He's like, oh, I'm in the White House right now for the Eagles thing. And I'm like, what the heck?
There's a part of me that wonders like when maybe he found out like, damn, that's tomorrow. And I just found out about it now, but he at least text
me off a text.
Text.
Listen, I got a work thing here. I'm going to the White House with the Eagles.
Pretty simple, pretty quick.
Exactly. So we're going to be diving into some Eagles talk, folks, and just give our thoughts on the Eagles draft. I know a lot of analysis and talk on other podcasts have been done about it, but we want to give our 2 cents here as well. And then from there, we're going to be getting into the Philadelphia Union. The Philadelphia Union and us fans, we were not expecting Daniel Gadzag to leave this organization so soon. He's in Cleveland. What does this mean for the Union as they are now third in the Eastern Conference? So after that, we're going to be diving into some Philadelphia Phillies talk here with Len. And then what we're throwing down on the table this week, we've got Ethan Witte from thegoodfight.com. He's going to be joining us to break down the pitching, the batting issues that we've been seeing with this Phillies team. It's not all terrible, certainly not all great, but we're going to dive into it with Ethan. So that being said, Len, why don't we get into some Philly sports history here? I've got 4 notable moments that I want to first read, and then maybe we can dive into 1 or 2 of them if we find anything really notable with these. So I want to go back. Let's go back to May 1st, 1883. This week, May 1st, 1883. It was the Philadelphia Phillies' very first game in franchise history. Their inaugural game was played in the National League, and they were facing the Providence Grays at Recreation Park. They lost that They lost that game 4-3, and this game marked the beginning of the Phillies' storied franchise history. And then we can actually move to May 1st, 1906, where one of the greatest names, and we're going to have to talk about this in a little bit here, Johnny Lush had a no-hitter.
Ooh.
Philadelphia Phillies on May 1st, 1906. He threw a no-hitter against the Brooklyn team at the time. It then became the Brooklyn Dodgers. It was a 6-0 victory at Washington Park in Brooklyn. And that was the last no-hitter by a Phillies pitcher until 1964. So
Wow,
that's
that's
pretty interesting.
amazing. That's that span of time, like
Exactly.
pretty much 60 years, basically.
By the way, I was going to save it for later, but just let's talk about it now. Could be the greatest name in Phillies sports history, Johnny Lush. I wish my last name was Lush.
It's like if you like wrote like
Uh,
a script for a
yes,
movie, and like you get it handed back to you, and they'd
right.
say nobody's named Johnny Lush. Get the hell out of here.
Exactly.
So yeah, like, but it actually was somebody's name.
Yes, it was his name, Johnny Lush, and he hit that, or he threw that no hitter against Brooklyn back in 1906, May 1st. So let's move to May 6th, 1976. It was Reggie Leach's record tying performance. Who's Reggie Leach, folks? Well, he was a Philadelphia Flyers right winger. He scored 5 goals in a playoff game against Boston Bruins, and at that moment tied an NHL playoff record. The Flyers won that game 6-3. And then finally, for our Philly sports history segment here, May 2nd, 2001, Philadelphia 76ers eliminated the Indiana Pacers in game 5. That game was 88-85. What a score. What a score, Len. 88-85 in game 5 of the first round of
Yeah,
the NBA playoffs.
you don't get those scores anymore in the NBA. It's like
Exactly.
118 to 113 and
Yeah,
like all stuff like that.
exactly. People
I
played
that
defense back then.
Well, yeah, yeah, different game.
Yep.
I guess that was okay. 2001, you said, so that was when they were on their run to
Yeah,
the
it was.
NBA
Yeah, May
Finals.
2nd,
Okay,
2000. Yeah, May 2nd, 2001, where they beat the Pacers. Allen Iverson led the team with 33 points in that game. Dikembe Mutombo and Aaron McKee helped to secure the win with some real big plays in that game. And it, like you just said, that victory marked their progression to the Eastern Conference semifinals during that memorable run to the NBA Finals that year, which of course we know how that ended up turning out. But yeah,
not great.
yeah, not great at all. But there were some moments right there in Philly sports history, buddy. But Johnny Lush, that's my top one from this week.
I wonder if he was hungover when he did it. He is a lush after all.
Zing, zing. Or we can perhaps do this one here. Car crash. I'm just kidding.
This whiskey is for Johnny Lush, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Len having that adult beverage there. Very nice. All right. Well, moving along with the show here. Len, the Philadelphia Eagles, we've heard and we have seen some analysis about their draft, the 10 new players that they drafted. They also have some unrestricted free agents that they signed as well. Not going to really dive into them, but the first few rounds were very interesting as the front office, Howie Roseman, really made a point to concentrate on the future of this defense. And I think we're seeing Vic Fangio becoming that much more of a valuable piece of or a valuable cog in this process here in the draft process. And just wanted to give our thoughts as we are moving forward here, because you look at just about everybody who gave any sort of grades for the Eagles draft. And I do find it is interesting how people are grading these draft picks. And it's like, is it clickbait? Like, what do you mean the grade? Like, is it like,
It's got to be clickbait because
yeah,
nobody's even gone to OTAs yet.
I
Like
know.
there's no way you can grade. You got to wait 2 or 3 years. Wait until they put out those redraft articles from like the draft 2 years ago before
Yeah.
you can honestly start assessing that stuff.
Right. I mean, there are like, say for instance, there are folks giving the Eagles an A minus. I think B plus was like the bottom grade that I saw in terms of reading some of the stuff here. But you look at a guy like Jihad Campbell, who was the 31st overall pick, and there were certain folks that had him ranked as the number 14 player in the draft class, and a lot of folks saying arguably the best value pick of day one. And they went real heavy on defense, and I liked it. you've got a linebacker slash edge rusher that is going to be hopefully a valuable piece moving forward. Howie Roseman really valuing the defense. And I think a lot of that is because of Vic Fangio and what Vic Fangio meant to this team during the Super Bowl run this year, and how dominant the defense was. I think Vic Fangio, I mean, I think he's going to be a part of this Eagles team and organization for a very, very long time. Like, that's my biggest theme and takeaway from this, Len, from this draft.
What, just in terms of Campbell, or just
With Fangio, like Fangio
oh,
being so
just his
instrumental.
voice, yeah, is
Yes.
instrumental in the organization. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, you look, the first 5 picks of this draft were all defensive players. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a theme. I think that they kind of have an established pattern now. It used to be the joke of like, oh, the the Philadelphia Bulldogs would draft all the Georgia players, but
Yeah.
I think it's more of a high level SEC thing where it's Georgia players. It's Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. It's Andrew Makuba out of Texas. I mean, if you've shown that you can star in that league at that high level, that is something that I think Howie Roseman kind of puts stock in, and
Yeah.
you see that kind of bear its way out in the picks a little bit here.
I thought the very first pick off the board was actually going to end up being a defensive tackle. I actually thought they were going to go pass rusher or defensive tackle, but I mean, with Jahad Campbell, essentially he is going to be that edge rusher. He is going to take
Yeah.
likely Josh Sweat's place in the lineup. I loved the Andrew, or I don't know if we're calling him Drew, because I know he likes to be called Drew, apparently. Makuba as well, the safety out of Texas. Losing CJ Gardner-Johnson was absolutely huge, I think, for this team. Makuba is going to be able to come in and be a difference maker. I mean, I don't think he's going to be the end-all, be-all. It's going to take him some time, but his pursuit, his ability to read coverages, just from the film that I have seen thus far, I think he could potentially start over Sidney Brown. And with Ty Robinson, defensive tackle from Nebraska that was taken in round 4, Len, I think that rotation is going to be there. I think that for the defensive line, losing Milton Williams, well, yeah. Uh, See, this is the thing. I don't know if I would call it a huge loss, but it was a loss in that cog of what Vic Fangio has been able to do with the defensive line rotations. And I think Ty Robinson, he's not going to be perfect coming into the season by any stretch, but he's going to end up being part of the rotation, and he's probably going to just end up getting better with Fangio being his coach. So I love how this Eagles draft actually went this year. And Eric and I were talking about it on the show. We were just able to kind of sit back and say, you know what? Feels like Howie's playing with house money, and like whatever he does with that first pick, second pick, third pick, like, okay, I'm cool with it because we're trusting him at this point. Like, it's a good feeling to have.
Well, and that's the conversation that I had. My wife would ask me, especially some of the guys after like the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
The Eagles would take a guy and she would say, "Oh, do you like this pick?" And it's just like, I have no idea who he is, but based on the track record that they've had over the past couple of years, you have to give Howie the benefit of the doubt and give that the scouting and the development, all of it. It's all in together. The scouting is there with this team, and then the development. You see guys come in that are third, fourth, fifth round picks, and they become somebody, and that matters. And it's happened over the past couple of years now, where you've deep into the draft, you've gotten players that have become contributors, and that's a testament to the development there. But yeah, I mean, there's some names on here I can't tell you I've ever seen them play a snap. Maybe they did, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But at the same time, I trust them until they give me a reason not to trust them. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised by the second round pick, given that like a few of the mock drafts that I saw, it had them going safety, whether it was Winston out of Penn State or the kid out of Notre Dame, and it ended up being Makuba. So yeah, the fact that they went safety in the second round wasn't a huge surprise to me at all. But yeah, the fact that they went that way with their first 5 picks, that is a little bit of a surprise to me.
I'll tell you what was not a surprise to me, and I actually liked seeing it, was the fact that you had one of their 5th round picks was Drew Kendall from Boston College, the center and guard. And then round 6, you had offensive tackle Miles Hinton from Michigan being picked. And then the following pick right after that in round 6, they had Cameron Williams, offensive tackle out of Texas. The fact that they are trusting, and rightfully so, Jeff Stoutland to say, you know what, we're going to draft offensive linemen later in the draft. We saw what you did with Jordan Mailata. We've seen what Stoutland has done with talent that has been drafted on day 3 in the past and how much he's been able to get out of them. Why not? Get the best value you can with regard to these offensive linemen, develop them. It's such a smart strategy because of the type of offensive line coach you have, that you're going to be able to get the most out of these players at some point down the road in terms of depth pieces. I honestly, I hate to say it's genius, it's brilliant. I'm not saying that, but it's a really good strategy.
Well, and it's a luxury that they have right now, given
Yeah,
the offensive line coach they have, and also the personnel that they have on the offensive line at this moment. There will come a time when they have to spend a high pick on an offensive lineman. They're not going to be able to do this forever, where they
right.
just, say, "Hey, Jeff, here's a couple projects late in the draft for you. We're
Yep.
going to throw a couple bodies at you, and let's see what you do with them."
Yeah.
They're not all going to turn out to be winners. As much as at this point, we think that everything that Stoutland touches is going to turn into gold. That won't always happen, and there will come a time once a few guys move on, whether it's retirement or free agency or whatever, where they are going to have to, okay, for a second round pick, we're going to have to go and spend a high pick on an offensive lineman again,
Yeah.
and that'll happen eventually. But for now, hey, if he can get one or two of these guys to stick and be contributors, awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one less thing you have to spend stuff on later.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for our Eagles talk. Do you have anything else, buddy, before we move on to the Philadelphia 76ers here?
Um, no, I don't.
Okay.
I wish we could stay away from the Sixers forever, but if we must, we must.
Let's get into it, man. I mean, it's a critical offseason, as we know, for this 76ers team. Joel Embiid's injury has fueled a lot of uncertainty. And we know the Sixers, well, we hope that they're going to be able to keep their top protected pick from OKC. And what should Daryl Morey, do at this point in terms of this offseason? I mean, there's certainly some free agents that they can bring in, Trey Lyles is somebody who they could potentially bring in, Alec Burks. Those are just a few in terms of free agency that they could potentially bring in to help this team. But Len, I think when it comes to where this team goes from here, like the level of uncertainty that fans are really asked to deal with at this time, it is at an all-time high. And I uncertainty, that may actually be a generous way to describe how a lot of us in the fan base are feeling, because I think it's closer maybe to apathy here. There are so few people who believe in the short-term future of this team, again, because of Embiid's uncertainty with his knees and his inconsistent health over these years. Paul George, what type of Paul George are we going to see? But look, Philadelphia 76ers basketball has always been filled with some sort of change, some sort of turmoil. It seems like that is the path that this organization is on. And again, everything is riding on how Joel Embiid really comes back from his injuries. And even where, Tyrese Maxey, where he goes with his game. There's just so much uncertainty with this team right now that it's really hard to say, you know what? Window of opportunity is there, because I really don't think it is. I don't think anybody thinks it is with this team. I don't know. What are your thoughts at this point with the 76ers?
I mean, it's hard to have trust, and I think we've
Yeah.
talked about this before, but because we compare organizations, and obviously players matter. You have to have the talent there, and coaching and strategy and all that matters as well. But there's something to be said. I just talked about it with the Eagles. I trust their scouting. I trust their development. Once they get the guys in house, I trust the coaching to coach them up and make them into the players that they can be. I don't have any of that here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a problem. And it's a noticeable problem. So at this point, yeah, hopefully they can just, worst case scenario, they hold firm at 5. This kid Trey Johnson, I saw him a little bit in the tournament. He looks like he's a decent player, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I would love it if they could get one of those top 2 picks and at least have like a
Oh,
bridge because, it's hard. I want to believe that Joel Embiid can come back. I don't really have that faith for Paul George. I think he is what he is. I think he's going to be what he's going to be. He's going to be 50 to 60 games a year,
yeah.
and that's it. And that's probably what Embiid is as well. But I mean, I want to believe in Embiid, but he is now on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah.
So, that all those injuries that have been happening over the past couple of years, they're not magically going to get better all of a sudden. They're in
Right. They're
fact
not.
they're accumulating and they're probably going to get worse. So it'd be nice if they could get Cooper Flag and it'd be like, okay, this season sucks. Embiid's been out a lot, George has been out a lot, but I can at least watch Tyrese Maxey and Cooper Flag, and I can dream of the framework of the next Sixers playoff team.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, I don't feel that because I don't know that those two veterans that have been here are going to be available. So yeah, at this point, you're just hoping for to be able to look at the future because I don't know that the future is now for this team at this point.
I mean, we're all hoping it's Cooper Flag, but I'm wondering about Dylan Harper as well, and even maybe Ace Bailey.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Either one of those two would be great. Ace Bailey would be okay. I mean, I think the top 5 guys in this draft are pretty interesting. Also, throwing in there Trey Johnson, as I mentioned, and VJ
Yep.
Edgecombe out of Baylor. I think those are all interesting names. We'll see what happens. I think if I'm not mistaken, the lottery is on May 12th. So we'll see. They have a 64% chance of keeping their pick. If
Yep.
2 teams jump ahead of them, then it goes and they fall to 7th, and that pick goes to Oklahoma City. They have let's see here, according to tankathon.com, they've got a 42.1% chance at a top 4 pick and a 10.5% chance at the number 1 overall pick. So,
Yeah.
Decent odds for all of those things to happen. But yeah, I mean, at this point with this team, I just want something to look forward to because again, I just don't know that the present is ever going to be what we want it to be.
Exactly. They need to have a top 5 pick, I think, in this draft for us to have hope as a fan base. Like that's all we want. That's all we want is some hope.
Yeah.
Give it to us, Daryl. Give us hope. I think look, Eric and I were talking about it on a recent show. I think Adam Silver in the front office are really going to try to screw the 76ers in terms of the draft pick. I really do because
I've had that feeling about
Yeah.
Adam Silver for years and years and years. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you know how I feel about Adam Silver, and you know that I think that if he has the chance, if there is such thing as rigging the lottery, I think he would not hesitate to put the knife in between the Sixers shoulder blades here. Because I don't think he has any love lost for this organization because of the whole tanking thing.
Absolutely. All right. Well, folks, we're going to take a break here in just a bit. But first, if you're on YouTube, you're going to see here our social media sites. You can follow us and the show on various sites. Instagram at Philadelphia Sports Table, Twitter/X at Philadelphia PST. You can follow Eric and myself on those sites as well. I'm over on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. Eric and I are both over on Blue Sky. Search me up there at Brick Pollitt for Eric. And we're also on Threads. You can follow Eric at Slen1023 and me at Mr. Jeff Warren. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Philadelphia Sports Table. Just search us out on social sites. You will find us. And Len, with that being said, why don't we take a break and we'll be back in just a bit. That all right with you?
Okay.
Let's do it. All right, we are back, and we are going to be diving now into the Philadelphia Union. Yeah, Len, it's been some time since we've been able to talk about the Philadelphia Union because Eric's been on the show.
He's not talking him up.
He's like, what's this ball? This black and white ball. And 2 goals. What is this?
It's that thing your son plays.
Exactly. Yes. So look, It's been a surprising season for the Philadelphia Union. As of us recording this, they are 6-1-3. After last year, that was a dismal year in so many different ways. Jim Curtin being let go during the offseason, brand new coach coming in, and this team is now third in the Eastern Conference. Third in the Eastern Conference. Yet they took one of their star players who we all loved, Daniel Gadzag, and they moved him to Cleveland. They gave him
Columbus.
Columbus. That's right. Wrong
Yes.
wrong Ohio City here.
No,
But
you're
really,
Ohio.
exactly. Exactly. So apparently the Union let certain teams know that Gadzag would have been was a trade option about a month ago. And Isa Tall, who's the Crew's general manager, really just jumped on it. Tall knew that bringing in an attacking midfielder was a no-brainer for Columbus. So the deal was made using MLS's new cash for player trade policy, which allowed the Crew to send $4 million to Philadelphia for Gazdag, which is a pretty good deal. I'm assuming, as I'm continuing to still learn about contracts and money within Major League Soccer, but it does kind of stink. I thought he was going to be on this team for a while. We had no idea that he was a trade option even a month or two ago at this point, Len. So it was pretty shocking to get that news, and what it's going to do for the team here, I don't know. They're still successful at this point. And yes, it's early in the season here and they're still seeing success. So I don't know. What were your thoughts when you heard about the trade and the thoughts on where it might end up taking this team?
Utter disappointment, to be frank.
Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to this show leading up to the season, and you heard me complain pretty much ad nauseum. Oh, they're letting everybody go. They're really not bringing too many people in. Oh, they're gutting this team down to the studs, all of that. And then lo and behold, they come out of the gates hot. And it's like, maybe they have something. Okay. Ty Baribo is picked up where he left off at the end of last year.
Did he have 5 goals in like the first 2 games?
Yeah. And maybe,
3. Yeah.
I can't help but wonder if maybe his hot start maybe led the Union's management to be like, we can afford to get rid of Gazdag. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that to me would be the thinking, I guess. I could at least kind of see that, but
with
at the same
Sugarman,
time,
who the hell knows? With Sugarman, this
well,
freaking guy.
And that's the thing, okay, yeah, you got $4 million from Columbus for Gazdag. But like, are you gonna put that back into the club, or are you gonna put that in the pocket? Because you had a good thing here. You started off hot. You trade probably the teams. If you picked people out on the street and said, name 3 Philadelphia Union players, first of all, most people wouldn't be able to. But at the same time, among those that would, Daniel Gazdag would have been in 95% of the responses of the top 3 players that rolled off of their tongues for the Philadelphia Union.
Yeah.
He's a known quantity. He was basically, there were times in the past where he has essentially been their offense.
Yeah.
So you trade him, one of your most recognizable faces, to a team that you're fighting with in the standings. Columbus is currently second in the East. Philadelphia is third. So you're giving him directly to somebody that you're competing with. If in fact you are actually trying to compete, which, given this management and this ownership, I should say, I think the management may be trying to do what they can, but given this ownership, you have to wonder how much they're competing. And you give it to a club that, listen, since 2020, the Columbus Crew has won 2 MLS Cups. They won in 2020. They won in 2023. They've been there. They are a consistently well-run organization. And they said, "Oh, okay, you don't want him, we'll take him." And they plugged him right into their lineup, and and that's what a winning club does. And a team that consistently cares about winning, that's what that team does. That's not what the Union did here. And that for that reason, it's just disappointing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the bottom's going to fall out. This team's going to go tumbling to the bottom of the
Right.
East. That probably won't happen. They've got some other pieces there that they can compete with, but it just feels like you just took one hand and tied it behind your back in a fight.
You do. I could not understand taking Gazdag. He has proven himself to be a top goal scorer in this league since joining the Union back in 2021. And I mean, he's the Union's all-time leading goal scorer across all competitions with 59. But it leads me to believe that with Bradley Carnell coming in, I even Gazdag said in an article that I had read where he's like, I can't imagine that this would have happened if Jim was still the coach and he would
And
have
maybe
fought
that's
for me
part of it.
harder. Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
maybe they think, oh, he's a Jim Curtin guy, or
yeah,
maybe Carnell looked at his team and his personnel and said, yeah, and I don't know, this is pure speculation. Maybe he said that Gazdag's a square peg in a round hole. Maybe he doesn't fit what I'm trying to
maybe.
do. That's certainly possible. I as much as we as Union fans want to lay everything at Sugarman's feet, maybe it's not, but he's had enough over the past couple years where the smoking gun, just we automatically lead it to him.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's kind of the reputation that you put out there for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're going to keep following what this Union team does over these next how many games, and of course throughout the season here. But certainly a big shock for this team here. So, why don't we move on to our last story here and just talking about the Phillies before we get to the interview with Ethan Witte from thegoodfight.com. In terms of this Philadelphia Phillies team here, I've really been thinking a lot about what the past few years have meant to the team and the camaraderie and just the chemistry with all the guys in the locker room. I think that fun feeling, that fun loving feeling, whether it's the water at the end of the game, that those fun feeling vibes this season that they've had the past few seasons aren't there anymore. And I'm wondering if that's why that this season has been such a struggle for this team. It feels like whether it's you get it from Bryce Harper, you get it from just about every guy on this team where it's like, all right, we got to get down to business. We got to get down to business. All right, forget the fun loving stuff that we've been doing over the past few years. That our window of opportunity is going to start closing here. Let's get down to business. And I think part of what we've loved about this Phillies team, even though they faltered in the postseason recently, and that has been a disappointment, I think the majority of us fans have really enjoyed what this team has been in terms of that chemistry and those good vibes. They just don't have them. They just don't have them. I think that's part of why we are seeing such up and down struggles with this team here. I don't know. I wanted to bring it up because, I think it is a theme that we are going to need to continue to look at here with this Phillies organization and team.
Um,
What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think there is a certain sense from the fan base where it's just like, okay, prove it. Yes, you've gotten in the playoffs the past couple of years. Yeah, we made it to a World Series in 1 year, and then we just finished short, and then we fell short of that last year. So maybe the 3-year trend of going down the ladder. You know what I mean? Maybe that's kind of weighing on the Phillies psychologically. Maybe it's weighing on the fan base where it's like, wake me when the playoffs come.
Yep.
Maybe the Phillies are just like, let's just, that's when the season really starts. I mean, I'm not saying they're playing like it, not saying that they're not, out there trying to win. I mean, they're second in the NL East right now. So behind the Mets. So, that they've won their last 4 games now with tonight's win against Washington. So it's not like we're talking about a team that's in the toilet right now. They're playing. They rebounded from a 5-game losing streak with a 4-game winning streak. They're sitting at, I believe, 17-13 now. So it's not like they're playing horribly, but yeah, that whole thing. I know that there was the talk of the maybe a rift between Alec Boehm and Brandon Marsh
Yes.
because somebody has a girlfriend now and somebody's
Yes.
not happy about it. And I mean, I would hope it's not that. I would hope that
Right.
we're all adults here,
Right.
at this
Exactly.
point. Maybe they're growing out of the daycare stuff. Maybe it's
Yeah.
the fact that they're getting older. Alec Boehm is in his late 20s now.
Yeah.
Maybe they decided, all right, we're kind of grow up a little bit and get away from
Yeah.
that. I do think you kind of need that a little bit on a
Well, I mean,
team.
there's a ton of veterans on this team. I mean,
Yeah,
Trey
you need a
Turner.
bit of a
Yeah.
young spark to
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
keep things light. But the
Exactly.
Phillies don't have young players on their
Yeah.
team. I mean,
Bryson
look at
Stott
look at the
basically
young
is the only
players
one.
on their
Yeah.
team. Bryson Stott's been here for 3 years now, at
Yeah,
least.
that's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah. He's a
you know,
veteran.
it's not like you got some spunky rookie that's oh, look at this guy, he's new to the league and he's he doesn't know what's going on, but he's doing
Right.
well, and he's endearing in that kind of way. There's not that on this team, so maybe you need it, but the only way you're getting that is if Aiden Miller or Crawford gets called up, and you have to if I was a rookie, I wouldn't be coming in there all just trying to make jokes. All of a sudden you have to find yourself, your head's on a swivel, probably learning the game, and you don't want to come in and rock the boat at all. So
Yeah.
there's all that you're worried about as a first time major leaguer. So I think that it's kind of going to move away from that whole fun daycare vibe for a little bit, just because of that, because just guys are getting older.
I
It
like the
happens.
daycare vibe. I like it.
It happens,
I
believe it or not, Jeff, we're not as fun as we used to be.
What do you
I know
mean?
that's probably hard for you to believe, but
What do you mean?
we're not.
We're late 40s here, you and I. You mean, look, I have been at a number of concerts over the past few days. Then again, or the past few weeks, I should say. Then again, I feel like I'm like, oh man, my knees are hurting after standing for like 4 hours.
You were in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And then later that night I saw a picture of you and Eric and Eric's wife at a show in Philly.
Yes.
And
Longest
the only thing that
life.
went through my mind was, I can't imagine driving across the street, across the state,
yeah,
and then going to a Loud concert at the end. Like, and I don't mind Loud. I mean, I still go to shows and all that stuff, but like after driving across the state, I saw that picture. I was like, oh God, he's going to be exhausted. Like, you know what I mean? It's just,
you were right.
That's the way we think now, because that's just how it is.
It is. It was a good 5 hours from where we were at, right outside of Aliquippa, which is western, like west of outside of Pittsburgh to the west, really close to the Ohio border. Yes.
Yeah.
Drive back. It's 5-hour drive. I get home and I'm like, all right, I got to eat something. So I had,
it's not like you drove directly to Philly. You drove
right,
to the Lehigh Valley and then down to Philly, which is its own thing.
Put 2 chicken tenders in the air fryer, had those, and I headed right down. I was here for 15 minutes, and then I head right down to the show.
What a nightmare.
Oh, it was a great show, though. It was a great show. Philly's own shoegaze band, Nothing. They were fantastic. For all you folks out there. Yes, for all you folks out there. Listen to Nothing. I actually said to my daughters, I'm like, oh, I'm going to a show tomorrow. They're like, who are you seeing? I said, I'm seeing Nothing. And I swear to God, my daughter goes, Dad, who are you seeing?
Oh, God. It turned into a who's on first thing.
I swear. No. It was like, Dad, who are you seeing? I said, I'm seeing Nothing. She's like, Dad, who are you seeing? I said, I'm seeing Nothing. She's like, oh, is it a band? Nothing. I said, yeah, dear. Yeah. Yes. Wordplay.
Oh, boy.
All right. Well, buddy, I think we want to get to the interview with Ethan Witte here. Do you have anything else before we head out of here? It was great doing this video, man.
It was a good first experience. It didn't take nearly as long to get everything. I honestly thought, I was like, oh man, we're going to be here probably for an hour trying to figure this out. And it only took us maybe like 20 minutes.
That's it.
Went a lot quicker. No technical glitches. I think everything went pretty good. So thumbs up to the whole experience.
All right. Sounds good. Well, folks, we are going to take a break here. And when we come back, I'll be sitting down with Ethan Witte from thegoodfight.com. And we'll catch you after the break. Now joining us from thegoodfight.com. He's the supreme blog lord over there. They have fantastic content constantly when it comes to this Philadelphia Phillies team. We're going to dive into what we've been seeing from the Phillies as of late and what's going to be happening with this team in the future. Again, the supreme blog lord over at thegoodfight.com, Mr. Ethan Witte. How you doing, buddy?
Everything's going well, Jeff. How about you?
Things are all right. Look, when it comes to this Phillies team and what we've been seeing from them so far this season, Ethan, there's been some good. And there's certainly been some not so good things coming from this Phillies team as well. So wanted to get the conversation started off by assessing, if we can, who this team actually is at this point here as we're heading into May. What I'm wondering, what is the theme of this Phillies team so far this year after about a month of baseball in your eyes? I mean, are we able to assess really at this point what the theme of this team and season is for this Phillies team?
I usually don't get it worried about anything until like Memorial Day. So it's still,
Yeah.
to me, it's still early, it's still April. They're just inconsistent right now. I mean, I think they're running into hot teams. They ran into a hot Giants team. They ran into a hot Mets team, a hot
Yeah.
Cubs team. I think they're just the inconsistency will kind of play itself out when you're playing teams like that. I mean, you can't go in against teams that are that good, playing that well, and expect to come out on the good end of it when you're not playing well yourself.
Yeah.
Um, there are things they have to clean up, but at the same time, there are 3 games over 500. They're still a good team. They're still likely to make the playoffs, so long as some of those NL West teams fall off. But
Right.
it's I'm not worried about too much of anything except for kind of like one section, which we'll probably get into in a minute.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's veterans. They're veterans. They'll figure it out. It's not too much to worry about just yet.
Again, folks, talking to Ethan Witte at Ethan_Witte over on the Twitter/X. Buddy, are you on any other social platforms here at this point? Like I am so like confused, not confused, but we are on so many social platforms ourselves. I just wanted to throw it out there for you. I don't know if you're on Blue Sky or Threads or anything.
I'm on Blue Sky, but honestly, like I've throttled down on all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just too much of it at times.
Yes. All right. Sounds good. So again, at the Twitter/X at Ethan_Witte. And as we're moving along with the conversation here, buddy, you know, the starting pitching has been somewhat, and I stress the word somewhat, disappointing for some Phillies fans from an overall perspective, as Aaron Nola's got a 5.40 ERA as of us recording this, and he still hasn't had his first win of the season yet. He's 0-5. Zach Wheeler, he's got a 3.62 ERA as of us recording this as well. Jesus Luzardo, a fantastic year so far, 1.73 ERA. He is killing it. How do you think we as fans really should be looking at the starting pitching in terms of the expectations so far? You mentioned the inconsistency overall. We're certainly seeing that from a starting pitching standpoint, but how should we be assessing the starting pitching from an overall perspective here?
I personally have been fine with the starting pitching. I think Wheeler, they kind of have Wheeler and Nola seem to have a bad case of homeritis, where it just seems like they're giving up home runs at bad times.
Yeah.
Especially Wheeler last night, he shook off Real Muto, and next pitch throws the ball ends up in the stands, and the game becomes a game that it shouldn't have been a game. With Nola, I mean, everyone's worried about Nola's start, but at the same time, I wrote a piece last week. Everyone was worried about his velocity, but if you look back historically, his velocity is always down in April, and it tends to bounce back. And we did see that on Sunday night. It started to bounce back a little bit more. I think it was up like 1 or 2 miles an hour on average against the Cubs, and it showed. I mean, when he's got the velocity up on that stuff, everything else plays off better than that. I know the whole broadcast they were talking about the pitching plan worked, but the best thing for him, the pitching plan, was he threw strikes. And that's kind of been his issue lately, is throwing strikes. Luzardo's been great. He's been that was a great trade then, and it's a great trade now. So long as, knock on wood, we're not going to say the H word, but he's been great. Sanchez looked like a Cy Young candidate before he got hurt, and tonight's a big night for him. We're doing this on Wednesday, and he's starting tonight. If he gets through 6-7 innings, I mean, you can kind of just consider that last start just a little blip that they were being overly cautious with. Even Taijuan Walker, I think, has been decent. He's been a good number 5 starter.
He hasn't been terrible. Yeah.
I don't know what else you can ask from him. And they've got Painter making his way back. Suarez is coming back. I mean, I know we all want to worry about the losses with Nola, but at the same time, I think the starting pitching just hasn't been the issue at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been disappointing with Nola, a little bit. I mean, the tiniest a bit with Wheeler, but everything else I think has been fine, if not better than fine.
Yeah, the theme, of course, coming into this season was the start, because the front office didn't necessarily make a ton of moves with regard to a batting personnel, that it was going to be the starting pitching that was really going to be able to make or break this season. And I think because of Aaron Nola, there's that narrative that the starting pitchers have a problem. And I'm with you. I don't necessarily think the starting pitchers have a problem. I think it was that extremely high expectation of where the starting pitching was going to be,
Sure,
as though
sure.
they would as though all 5 starters would have like a 1.5 ERA or something.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of
Yeah.
thinking it was 2011 all over again. You're going to have the four aces
Right.
plus, and in all honesty, you're close. You've got two in Sanchez and Wheeler. Lazardo's pitched like one, and Nola. I mean, Nola's start on Sunday should have been super encouraging. So let's say Suarez comes back healthy and comes back as Suarez, you're right back to where you started from.
Yep.
Just maybe a little bit later than people would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sticking with the pitching, but moving over to the bullpen, man, this bullpen still very shaky, Ethan. And I'm surprised Orion Kerkering has kind of struggled as much as he has this season. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I thought he would have that one pitch in his arsenal that he would be able to utilize to get him out of tough situations that he is in. But they've gotten to the point where they put Seth Johnson in the bullpen this past week, and Jordan Romano, he continues to struggle as well from an overall perspective this season. Is there anything the fan base thus far is getting wrong about the bullpen in terms of the overall frustrations and how well or not well the bullpen is performing overall? Or do folks just really need to be patient here and see where this crew takes the team over these next few weeks?
As far as has the fan base been wrong? No, they haven't been good. I mean, there's really no way to sugarcoat. There's no way you can't gaslight somebody into saying, oh, they've been good because no, they haven't been good. Alvarado's been good, but other than that, they're not that good. But on the other end, yes, it's still early. I think Romano's had a good. They must have figured something out with him. He's been good his last 2 or 3 outings.
That
so
is true.
If he was pitch tipping, then if they clean that up, then I think you're going to see him in for a string of good outings. And if he is, then again, it's an April blip, and because it's the first thing we see, all the other sports are done. You're focusing in on one thing. Strom's been a little here and there. Strom's still a good reliever. He's still a good reliever. But my issue is with you. I'm with the whole thing with Kerkering is just odd. I think, in my opinion, would take it for what it is. He needs a third pitch. He needs something different because the sweeper is good, but if you can just eliminate that as an option, then you sit on a fastball that's really not that overpowering. It doesn't get many swings and misses, and that's what he's getting hammered on. He needs a third pitch, something, a splitter change, something that they, even if it's not good right away, it gives them something to think about, that they can't just sit on one pitch. I think if he can do that, I think that's when he takes off. One of our writers has something coming up about his lack of swing and miss, and for a guy who's got as good a stuff as he does, it's very strange.
Yes.
So yeah, he maybe just it's hard to say. He's a good high leverage reliever, but maybe not as good as they think he is. Maybe instead of the second option of the bullpen, he's more like the fourth, something like that, which now you're talking about putting him in the 6th, 7th inning when the game's there's still enough game to come back if he has a rough outing. It's just, let's bring him along slow. Remember, he's still young. He's still got a lot of time. But Caleb Cotham has shown the ability to say, maybe you could work with this, tinker with this. So maybe that's where they need to be right now, is working with him on that.
Yeah, I think so. I would absolutely agree with you on that for sure. But Ethan, let's now move on to the runners in scoring position storyline with this team. And it just seems to be an ongoing storyline. My gosh, I feel like we've been talking about this for years now at this point. I mean, I thought it was amazing how when you look at the metrics during the series against the Mets, which was a terrible series, of course, for the Phillies, they got swept. I mean, their bats actually weren't terrible with runners in scoring position from what I recall in that series against the Mets. But I'm wondering, are we as a fan base making too much out of the runners in scoring position storyline that's really been plaguing this team for quite some time now?
I think so. To me, the runners in scoring position thing isn't so much worrisome. Is the lack of power?
Yeah.
They're not hitting for much power, over the fence power, I should say, as they have in the past, and that's odd. I mean, everyone wants to talk about, are they starting to decline? Are they starting to decline? Doubtful, but it's just odd that they're not hitting for the power that they usually do. So I think that's more
Yeah.
something to worry about than runners in scoring position. I think it's been written about before that that's not really a repeatable skill. There is some luck involved in that. That's why, like, when you hear about guys like David Ortiz being clutch, well, it's not a skill. I mean, he's good. He's
Yeah.
just a good hitter. He's a good hitter being put in good positions. So, you know, 7 times out of 10, they're going to fail. And it just seems like we're seeing the 7.5 and 8 times more and more often
Yeah.
than we are than anything else. Yeah, I'd be more worried about the team's lack of power so far than runners in scoring position.
Yeah, and it's interesting as we're talking about the power situation or lack of power that we are seeing from this team. I mean, it's a real thing, and honestly, I think Bryce Harper needs to be playing better baseball in the batter's box at this point. You talk about the power, and he's of course he's trying. Trey Turner certainly needs to step it up in terms of his offensive productivity as well. Alec Boehm, another gentleman who needs to step things up. What are you seeing, Ethan, with regard to the veterans on this team in terms of how they are playing offensively and essentially what they are doing wrong? Because we're continuing to see this and seems to be a trend, especially for Trey Turner. I'm getting really concerned about what he's been doing in the batter's box. I don't know. What are your thoughts and assessments here about how these veterans are playing from an offensive standpoint?
I wouldn't be worried about Harper. I mean, it's, again, you could just be seeing a lot of power slumps at the same time. I
Yeah.
wouldn't worry about Harper. It does seem like when he was in Chicago, he had one or two that wind clearly had an issue with. There was one in New York where the wind clearly took one down. Turner's interesting in that he's kind of trying to figure out what he wants to be. Does he want to get on base and steal bases, or does he want to hit for power? Like, which one do you want? And it seems like he's kind of stuck which one he wants to figure out he wants to be. And I still Alec Boehm, to me, it's just good hitter. Put him 7th. He doesn't have power yet, although the sacrifice fly he hit in Chicago again, I think, knocked down by the wind. Um, I Turner, my expectations are no longer a 5, 6, 7 WAR player. I'm thinking more like 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. And if you
Okay.
have those expectations, then maybe his profile doesn't seem so disappointing, if that makes any sense.
It does.
With Boehm, I think the offseason clearly has affected him. The fact that he was in every rumor there was, I think that's clearly played an issue with his season so far. He had some really, really, really bad luck to start the season, and you can see him sort of snapping out of it a little bit. But again, the power is not there. It just seems to be a team-wide thing where we were talking about this amongst ourselves. The big thing after the 23 National League Championship Series was don't chase, don't chase, don't chase.
Right.
Well, they stopped chasing, but they also kind of lost their way of who they were as a hitter. And then Castellanos kind of was the one who says, I'm just going to be me. And he goes on a tear. He's one of the better hitters in the National League from like the end of May on last year. But again, like, are we doing the same thing again? Where we were focusing on don't chase, don't chase, don't chase. And they're not chasing, but again, how they hit and how they've done is changed again. So you're kind of like rock and hard place. Do you want them to do one thing and forget how they were? Or do you want them to go back how they were, but now they're doing the thing you don't want them to do?
Right.
So
There's no silver bullet here. No.
That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
what are we looking for with him? That's the question.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeking answers to, to that question for some time, I think here, unfortunately. But Ethan, before I let you go, buddy, I wanted to talk about a piece that you recently wrote over at thegoodfight.com about whether the Phillies actually have some untouchable prospects within the farm system. I was hoping we could dive into the storyline, as we know the Phillies and Dave Dombrowski may need to make some changes with regard to the bullpen before the trade deadline. Ryan Helsley, the trade rumors there are already heating up. And yes, while we're certainly a long way from there, it's an interesting topic to discuss. And I thought your piece was interesting on this. You know, whether it's Andrew Painter, whether it's Justin Crawford, do you see anyone as being untouchable here in this farm system?
The only one I think is untouchable is Painter. I just don't see him. You can't trade Andrew Painter. I mean, when you see what pitching goes for on the free agent market, if he's anything close to what we think he is, he's going to be 6 years of whatever control they've got. He's going to be, if he's what we think he is, he's going to be incredible. So you can't move him. You just, from a team building idea, you can't move him. I know the other two guys that people look at are Crawford and Aiden Miller, but I'm looking further down at guys like Aaron Escobar, Eduardo Tait. Those are the guys I'm thinking maybe you want to hold on to them for the future. I mean, yes, you want to improve and keep this window open as long as possible, but at the same time, you want the window to keep going, keep staying open for a championship. You basically have two sets of windows. You have the Zach Wheeler window while it's open. You want to maximize that. You've also got the Bryce Harper window. So you've got to keep those things open, and you can't just keep buying your way to this stuff. You need to have these kids come up and actually play well enough to, keep the window open. The guy that I would look to see them trade, there's two. Mick Abel's been really good this year, surprisingly. He's kind of rebuilding some value. I think I might lead anything with him just to kind of, while the value's good, we've seen the years where he's been disappointing. I would kind of tend to lean more on that track record than this, and he might be my number one guy that I would deal. The other one I would look at would be Moises Chase. He just, I don't know, I got a bad vibe from him not showing up to camp on time, in shape, ready to go. If he's still as highly thought of as people around the game seem to think, he might be another one. I think, listen, if maybe now's the time to push that chip into the table.
Going to be interesting for sure. And again, folks, head on over to thegoodfight.com. Check out all of their content with regard to the Philadelphia Phillies. Great content. And it was great to have you on, Ethan. I appreciate you taking the time. Please come back and join us. I would love to have you on the show again, my friend.
Anytime, Jeff. Anytime.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show this week. Our social media sites that we are on, you can check us out on Instagram, Twitter/X. I am over on TikTok. You can search us out there, Facebook.com/Philadelphia Sports Table. You can like our page there. We're on Threads, Blue Sky with Eric and myself. You can search us out. And that is going to do it for us, everyone. Take care, and we will catch you next time.